Is Dick Cheney at the top of the UFO cover-up pyramid? What is going on? Let's watch a brief clip from our very good friend Dan Warren. If you guys aren't following Dan, be sure to check out all of his videos over on Twitter. We'll have a link to his Twitter account scrolling for you in a little bit. But he did a video to kind of give us the Cliff Notes version of why people are now saying that Dick Cheney might be kind of at the top of the UFO chain, as it were. So let's watch that, and then we're gonna bring our guest in. Give this a watch. This is awesome. Kudos to Dan. He made me laugh. Watch this.
Must be the most hilarious twist in the UAP disclosure story. We may have just learned who the head of the UFO gatekeepers is, and if you don't know, that's right, the guy whose nickname is literally the Darth Vader of DC is rumored to be the guy in charge of the gatekeeping effort to keep the answer to the question, are we alone, from me, from you, and from humanity at large. And Cheney even embraces his galactic moniker, and even dressed up as a spirit animal on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And we suspect that Darth Cheney is in charge of the UFO cover-up because of recent comments made by Walter Kern, a journalist who spent the day interviewing David Grush for the County Highway, who recently stated,
I talked to a high-level UFO whistleblower last year, and I said to him, who among all the people in society is keeping this secret? Who sits atop the pyramid of classified information about UFOs? But he said, Dick Cheney.
And while the jury is still out on the credibility of this claim, this isn't the first time that the UFO Rebel Alliance has focused their sights on connecting Big Dick Cheney to the UFO cover-up, including Wendell Stevens, who decades ago claimed,
and the government is not going to open the files. We have people, prominent people, that know all about what the government is sitting on. Dick Cheney, vice president, was photographed at level 2 of S4 looking at one of 7 crash disks.
And in 2001, UFO researcher Grant Cameron was even able to ask Dick Cheney on air about his knowledge of the UFO topic.
Mr. Cheney, I have a question. Since the statement made by George Bush last July, there's been a vicious rumor circulating in the UFO community that you've been read into the UFO program. So my question to you is, in any of your government jobs, have you ever been briefed on the subject of UFOs? And if you have, when was it and what were you told?
Well, if I had been briefed on that, I'm sure it was probably classified and I couldn't talk about it.
And I can't think of anyone better suited or willing to withhold basic fundamental truths of our collective existence from us in exchange for military advantage and profit. Think about it. He's one of the most powerful men to ever straddle the line between the U.S. military and the weapons industry. And he possibly has the influence to persuade the military to engage in conflicts that result in lucrative contracts being awarded for the development of the next generation of our war-fighting machines. And this arrangement ensures that the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about continues to eat good and grow its power and influence over our elected officials. So yeah, maybe Dick Cheney really is the UFO Darth Vader. And yeah, that makes you part of the UAP Rebel Alliance. Now ask yourself, do you think Dick Vader is in charge of the organization to cover up the UFO topic that Lou Elizondo recently described as...
There is absolutely a cabal, an organized group of individuals who have a comprehensive understanding of the U.S. government's involvement in the UAP topic going back decades. They are very influential, and they guard this information jealously. In the past, they have been able to exercise extreme influence, and I cannot overstate the terminology I'm using here, okay, to keep this conversation squelched.
There you go, guys. Special thanks to Dan Warren for that entertaining video, to say the least. I did put a poll over on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube. We are live on Twitch too. I totally forgot to mention that. So welcome to our Twitch subscribers as well. And Twitter X, thank you guys. Thank you. I did a poll and I asked, is Darth Cheney our UFO Sith Lord? 48% of you said yes, 14% said no, 31% said need more info, 8% said I'm more of a Star Trek fan. So that's fair. That's fair. That 31% need more info. That's where I'm at right now. And like any UFO researcher, when I heard about this, what did I do? I Googled, is Dick Cheney part of the UFO cover up? And I stumbled across a YouTube channel, which I subscribed to, and I highly suggest all of you do. And I found a 40-minute video talking about this very story. So to sort of expand on all of this when it comes to Dick Cheney and why he might at least be involved with this, if not at the very tippy top, why people are saying this and why it could maybe be possible. So I'm going to bring in right now from the Expanded Knowledge YouTube channel, Anthony DeLorenzo, and we're going to talk more about this. So let me bring him in, guys. And yeah, I'm super excited. Anthony, welcome to Somewhere in the Live Stream, man.
Hey, Ryan. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Okay. So, like I said, sometimes the best way to meet new people is to stumble across them on the internet. And that's what happened to me today, man. Literally.
Nice.
I knew I was doing this live stream. I knew I wanted to cover this story because everyone's sort of talking about it. And I was finding nothing. All I was finding was that same clip, like Kern, saying Dick Cheney. And then that's it. And then there was like nothing else talking about it. And then lo and behold, your YouTube channel popped up and I watched the video. And then I immediately, like in the comments section, was like, hey, do you want to come talk about this? And you were so kind to just be like, throw caution to the wind and say, I'm going to come on this random person's live stream. So again, Anthony, thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reaching out. I'm happy I was able to come.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So for our audience, again, guys, go subscribe to the channel. We'll have the link for you guys as well. Can you tell us a little about yourself? I know you kind of give brief intros in some of your videos, but whatever you're willing to share with our audience, who you are, what you do, and what brought you into this crazy UFO world, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. The YouTube channel that you found my video at is Expanded Knowledge with an X. And I started that last year. And basically, I would say for the last 3 to 4 years, I've been studying in depth the UFO subject. So just reading book after book. And I would say before that, I always thought that there was probably something to it, but I never really gave it any actual serious thought. And I just stumbled upon a book. It's called The Day After Roswell by a former Pentagon official who wrote it in 1997. And he said he got the Roswell files. And I read that book going into it with an open mind. And I basically came out of it saying, wow, there's really something going on. Dug more and more into it. And it was kind of funny because right after about 2 years, it took me to get to a point where I was just about to conclude like that it really is a real thing. At that same moment, David Grush came out with the first thing. And so I was like, wow, what an interesting timing. And yeah, so now my channel, I just, I share my research. I share about my thoughts about the what's going on currently. And as far as me, I'm a history teacher and a philosophy professor. So that's what I do. And so it's kind of very interesting for me to get into this subject and look at it historically and think about it, like what makes sense and like what kind of arguments are good and so forth. So
that's so cool, man. I recently had a gentleman named Greg Agigian on the show, and he is a historian at Penn State University.
Oh.
And I believe he just came out with a book from a historian's perspective of this topic. And, like you mentioned with Philip Corso, the book that you read, I remember Day After Roswell very well. It was one of my first books. You can only see a portion of my library back here, but I've got about 12 boxes of UFO books back home in my parents' attic. So I know what that's like to sort of get consumed with this topic and read every book you can. In fact, I've just got this one yesterday. It's called The Flying Saucer Viewpoint. I'm not familiar with it. I love the cover, which
Yeah.
is, often a selling point for these
Yeah.
UFO books. But all this to say, it's refreshing to see someone like yourself, a historian, getting involved. I wish more historians would get involved in this topic. And it also gives us context for a story like this Dick Cheney thing. Now, for me, kind of a surface level, I don't like calling myself an expatriate. I live in Scotland right now,
Okay.
but I am clearly from the United States,
Mhm.
or at least North America.
Sure.
And I knew Dick Cheney as the vice president. That's really about it.
Yeah.
Everyone's calling him Darth Cheney, or they're calling him like the most powerful vice president in history. And these are things that I never like grew up knowing. Maybe I should have paid a bit more attention to
Mm.
politics in American history.
Yeah.
But that's my long-winded way of asking you, why are people saying this? Why is it possible that Dick Cheney could be part of the UFO cover-up, if not at the top? Do you have any sort of idea of why that might be?
Yeah, well, I would say first of all, let's look at where the comment came from, as you showed in that great clip there, that David Grush told Walter Kern, the reporter, right? And you can look at the original article from 2023. Walter Kern was interviewing David Grush. It was like October of 2023, and he said, of everyone who knows something about it, the UFO cover up, who knows the most?
Mhm.
Grush said, I can give you a guess. Now, in the article, they didn't say Dick Cheney. So, Kern just moved on. But Grush said, remember, it's just a guess. So now, yes, like you showed in your video, this journalist, Walter Kern, recently in that interview said it was Dick Cheney. And of course, we know he's talking about David Grush, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say to start, right, look, David Grush spent 4 years on the UAP task force investigating all of these compartmented programs that no one was ever allowed to investigate before until the UAP task force. So for this guy, and he was a high-level intelligence agent with a 14-year career, for him to do a 4-year investigation, submit all his evidence, and then come out publicly, and for him to say that, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he must have good reason to say that. So that would be where I'd start, is like,
Mhm.
Grush must have uncovered something to imply that. So there's that, but then if you look more deeper into the history of what some call the secrecy regime of the national security state of the United States government and the military, you see that, like you said, right? We those of us who are familiar with Dick Cheney, we think of him as the VP to Bush, right? And yes, he was this powerful VP, and he was kind of like this villain character. We don't think much more. And it was funny when I heard the Dick Cheney story last week, because earlier this year I had read a book that I recommend very much. It's called State of Silence, by someone called Sam Lebovic. And this is a very well-sourced history of America's secrecy state. And what I found as interesting throughout the book is Dick Cheney's really being like, the way this author put it was, Cheney was like the golden boy of this group that was really laying down the secrecy, lids tight on things. And it goes all the way back to the 60s that Cheney was in there. So, he had a long 40-year career where he was instrumental in keeping state secrets. And we're talking about, things that go back, we could get into more details about, but these secrets they had to start covering up were things like MK Ultra, the mind control experiments, and the COINTELPRO, which was where the FBI infiltrated citizens activist groups and were sabotaging their efforts, and this stuff came out, and then these actors, who Cheney was really at the center of, started to figure out, how can we clamp down, make sure Congress doesn't uncover anything else.
Hmm.
So that's probably where I'd start with that, and we could get into more detail wherever you want to.
Sure. You bring up a good point. Like, he's been doing this since you said, like, the 60s. That leaves a lot of time for him to at his level somehow butt up against the UFO topic. And I'm not even talking in the sense of like, oh, aliens crashed in Roswell, but just simply exotic technology that has been recovered, whether it's from a rival nation or is simply anomalous or unknown to the United States.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that he's come up against this in some way, in some form, in some fashion.
Yeah.
So I guess it would make sense for someone like Grush to not only name him or at least like suggest him, but for people like maybe even Jay Stratton to, at his level, to have come up against that. You know, we showed a clip earlier in the show. I don't know if you were watching, but he talked about like the struggle he had trying to get to some of these places, whether it's like the Department of Energy, who are, you know, basically don't have to answer to anyone,
Yeah.
or special access programs that he was coming into contact with and they weren't giving him anything.
Sure.
You do truly have to wonder,
Yeah.
like, who is above like what it was Stratton, I believe it was like second ranked admiral or something. I'm horrible with military.
Yeah, his position was really high, and because it's
Yeah.
not, it was technically like civilian, but he's military. It was what they say is the equivalent of a 2-star general.
Okay.
You know,
Got it.
even though he wasn't technically a general, you know, but
Yeah. Well, and you know, like again, some of this might come out in his book. Who really knows? I had a couple more questions here for
sure.
you, Anthony. Let's see. You in your video, which again, uh, guys, it's 40 minutes long. It's awesome. You go into so much detail. I highly suggest people go watch it. But we'll do the greatest hits here because I don't
Yeah.
want to keep you all night, Anthony.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your video other people
Yeah.
that could possibly have been involved throughout the years when it comes to this
Yeah.
cover up. Is that something you'd be willing to touch on here? Some of those individuals that you spoke about?
Yeah, and that's really key because, you know, when you asked me the first question, kind of just gave you like Cheney's very verifiable history of being at the center of just state secrecy, right, on the
Right.
deepest levels. So we know that now, like you said just now, what's the UFO connection though, right?
Mhm.
And if you look at who he was with and who he was working as an assistant to, can I screen share so your viewers could see some visuals, or we don't
I
need?
think so. I have one visual here that I pulled from your YouTube channel. I don't know if that helps at all.
Oh, yes, that was the one I was gonna pull.
Oh,
Exactly.
perfect. Dude, this was meant to be, I'm
Just
telling
so
you.
people can see the faces here, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you look to the far left, that's Donald Rumsfeld.
Mhm.
And Dick Cheney started his career out being his assistant. Now, there's a book called Space Force by an author, Michael Salla. And Michael Salla does a good job in this book of documenting the interesting involvement of Space Force in the UFO issue. And, you know, we don't really think about Space Force that much. It was created back during the Trump administration a few years ago. But Rumsfeld has this long history with the UFO subject going all the way back to the 1960s. And Rumsfeld was making investigations into Congress, into what was going on with the UFO issue, having scientists come and talk about it. If you look in the middle there, Gerald Ford, who Cheney also worked closely with his whole time in the government. And these guys were all like affiliated with each other. Gerald Ford, same thing. In the 60s, he's on the record. There's quotes that I showed in my video where he's actively pursuing the UFO issue. And then to his right, you have Richard Nixon. Now, Nixon's very interesting because he was pretty quiet about the UFO issue. There's really only one quote that you can find where he basically says, you know, he can't talk about it or something like that. But there's rumors about Nixon. One of them is that the actor Jackie Gleason, who they were very close, and we know Gleason was obsessed with UFOs and aliens. He made like a house in a UFO shape. There's a rumor, a story that Nixon took him to one of these underground labs or whatever and showed him one of the like alien bodies that was in a chamber or whatever.
Right.
And then, as Michael Salla argues in his book, he links Rumsfeld to being involved in that and kind of helping Nixon get that access. So, and then there are even some wild stories out there about Gerald Ford having a close encounter, if you will. And then, of course, on the far right, you have George Bush, who Dick Cheney was the vice president to. And you look at the Bushes, his father was the CIA director. When Bill Clinton went to him, George Bush's father, and said, I don't want to get their UFO files, George Bush Sr. said, you don't have a need to know. So we can infer that the Bushes have a deeper layer of knowledge. And then you just look, and then I'll say one more thing about this cast of characters who these are like Cheney's group here, entourage. Nixon was VP to President Eisenhower. And Eisenhower, of course, there's the famous legend, rumor that he met with some types of ETs. Now, we don't know if there's any truth to that, but it's been hanging around for a long time. At the very least, we do know that Eisenhower knew something was going on. Mm-hmm. And he made his farewell speech saying, watch out for the military-industrial complex. That's what he chose to focus on. And we know that he has a lot of UFO files in his personal archives, President Eisenhower. So it's possible that Nixon, we're talking about the mid to late 50s, right, when the UFO issue is really just still in that early stages. And Nixon was right there in the Oval Office with Eisenhower. And so to wrap it up, Cheney's connected to all these guys who have clear, documented UFO involvement. So for me, to make those two links, right? One, Grush names him. Two, we know he was a state secrecy agent on a very deep level. Three, he's close with all these UFO guys who we know have UFO involvement. And so therefore, it makes sense to me. And now I'll say this last, though. When we talk about the top of the pyramid, my own personal opinion is that Cheney would not be at the top of the pyramid. And I could go into the reasons why for that, but I'll stop there.
Interesting. Oh, I really want to ask you who you think is at the do you mention that in your video?
All I mention is that I think that they're anonymous. And okay. I base that for different reasons, but probably the best evidence I'd give to support that idea is there's another book called The Secret Team, and it's by Colonel Fletcher Prouty, Prouty. Now, this guy was the chief of special operations for the Joint Chiefs of Staff from like 1956 to 1960, like this critical period when all this stuff was going on. And his job was literally, he oversaw the CIA's covert operations. Mm-hmm. So he was very much in the know. He came out and wrote this book, which was very controversial, actually, that he wrote it. They didn't like it, tried to take it off the shelves and whatnot. You can get it, though, now on Amazon or whatever. And what he said was, the ones who are really behind it all are anonymous. And he says their anonymity is their strength, and they know it. And so he said multiple times in his career, he'd be in a room with someone who should have been the top of the top. And all of a sudden they would get a phone call and they were taking orders from someone. And Colonel Prouty says in the book, who is giving them the orders, you know? So I value someone like that's memoir, someone who was in there, like, because we don't know what goes on there, but these people do. And so for him to say there's an anonymous secret team behind it all, that would be what I think. And so I wouldn't put Cheney on the top. Cheney might be on the top of like the government officially like dealing with this issue, but I think there's like a deeper actor that like probably like manipulates the U.S. government. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. The anonymity. Yeah, excuse me.
It's
a hard one. I know. It is their power. It's so true. You know, I don't really get into politics on the show, but we should mention, you know, recently that Dick Cheney did endorse Kamala Harris. And, you know, we've had Trump talk about UFOs in the past as well, in terms of like, oh, yeah, totally. I'll release everything. I got the JFK stuff. I'll get you your Roswells. I'll get you your Area 51s, whatever you guys want to know. Whereas someone like Harris has never really touched on the subject, maybe very tangentially. But do you think if, let's say, hypothetically, that she does become president and, she does have Dick Cheney in her ear, that this topic would ever come up? Or is it too early to really kind of make an assumption about something like that?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's early to make an assumption. I mean, I will say at a basic level, I think it's an important thing that has said Dick Cheney is endorsing her, and we know his history and where he likely stands, and the fact that Grush named him is significant. So I do think that if he's supporting Kamala Harris, in my opinion, is that there's a reason for that, and my conjecture would be that whoever Cheney and whoever else may be trying to keep the lid on whatever, if the UAP issue, let's say, they see that administration as being more friendly to their initiative. However, I don't really know how much it really matters at this point, because the momentum of this issue and the legislation and the hearings and the testimony and so forth, they're going to have to start giving up some of it. So it's a matter of if Cheney can really be exerting himself more in the Harris administration, then we may have a slower rollout of disclosure and more of a fight that might drag on. And I don't know. I have no idea like what it would look like if Trump becomes president, because
Nobody
it's
does.
just very unpredictable. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Harris, it seems like she will probably just be like more status quo like Biden was. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
but it is a red flag to me, and I had stated that in my video, that, and also like the timing, like that news just came out, and then like in the debate, Harris mentioned Dick Cheney, like kind of bolstering one of her arguments. You're saying, "Well, Dick Cheney supporting me," so. But yeah, it's like we'll see. But yeah, I think that it's gone in Congress and the Senate too far now that I don't think it can go backwards really.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like we're at this point. I never thought I would see this. I mean, I've been researching UFOs for half my life at this point, over 20 years, and
Wow.
I never thought I would see this day where like we'd be talking about not just Dick Cheney, but like that we'd be having Senate UFO hearings, or David Grush would be talking to all these. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
again,
It's kind of surreal. Yeah.
it is, and I guess nothing in the world should surprise me anymore, especially when it comes to this topic. Well, awesome, man. Well, I guess that's kind of. I highly suggest people watch your video, because you do go much more into depth on these individuals and all of this. So again, guys, be sure to subscribe to that. Let us know where we can find your work. If you have any videos coming up that you're willing to tease, maybe. But yeah, man, this is your time. Let us know where we can find everything you're up to.
Yeah, just on YouTube, Expanded Knowledge, XPANDED Knowledge, and that's where all my videos are. It's either videos of research from historical topics. Now most of the channel is UFO related, but there's also a lot of other stuff, because really everything is interconnected. And I'll also cover recent things that are happening with disclosure, like you're doing here. So that's the main spot. I'm working on a book, and I'll let you know when that comes out. And but just the YouTube, yeah. And reach out if anybody wants to connect and collaborate on anything.
I was so like excited when you actually replied, because it rarely happens. Let's be honest.
Good.
Like
Yeah.
when I tweet to people or even comment on YouTube, like it's rare that anyone ever actually takes the time to respond. So I got to thank you for taking a chance and again coming on the show tonight to talk about these things. Again, guys, check out his video all about the Dick Cheney thing. It was very fascinating. But dude, I can't wait to see what you do next, and I'm so happy that I found your channel. So I don't think this will be the last time we'll have you on, if that's cool.
Yeah, I'm happy to come on and talk. It's been really nice talking with you, Ryan.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it, buddy.
Kudos to you for doing this channel and keeping people informed and diving into this.
I'm trying, man, but we can use all the help we can get. So again, guys, go subscribe to Anthony's channel for sure. And I'll say goodnight to you here, man. So thank you again.
You got it, Ryan. Thank you.
All right.